Okay, this is part of the Keep Calm and Study Geography series. In today's session we're going to be looking at the settlement topic. The settlement topic is part of the Unit 3 paper that you will be sitting on the 6th of June. On the 6th of June you'll be answering 4 questions: economic change, population change, tourist world, and indeed settlement change, which we are looking at in today's session. Points of reference then, it's important that you're using your settlement revision cards that you should have made already in the lesson. Hopefully you've bought the geography revision guides, both the guide and the workbook, and these are the page references for you to start to look at those. Some of you may be using the Geography A textbook as well, and it's page 188 onwards. Obviously you'll be wanting to use your class notes, an appropriate OS map, and obviously attend the revision sessions which are held on Monday for the foundation and Thursday for the higher paper. Moving on then, within the assessment topic there are 9 key subheadings or 9 key subtopics: site and situation, types of settlement shape, functions of town, rural depopulation, counter-urbanisation, new housing location, redevelopment due to deindustrialisation, which was the Docklands case study, brownfield versus greenfield, and low-income country urban growth. Now, just mentioning these 9 points here should bring back some memories, hopefully some good memories, and we're going to take a look at each of those in turn now. So these are just key notes, not comprehensive, just to give you a kind of memory jogger, as it were. So looking at site and situation then, site, as I mentioned here, is the ground on which the settlement actually stands. So it could be on highland, it could be on lowland, it could be on a meander loop, whatever the features that site is actually on. The situation is the location of the settlement relative to its actual surroundings. So it might well be, for example, that there's a particular river which is so-and-so kilometres west or so-and-so kilometres north or south or whatever it happens to be. There's a steep valley in a certain area, and it's nice to give some distance here if you're using an OS map, or indeed using your 8 or 16 point compass references as well. The location is the reasons why the assessment was actually chosen. So if we think back to our classwork here, we looked at the reasons for sites being chosen as being whether it's a wet point, so a wet point meaning whether it's got access to water, whether it's a dry point. This is important because although you want to be close to water, you want to be so close you could be flooded, so you don't want to be in a marshland or on a floodplain, for example. Other reasons why locations were chosen could have been for defence, shelter aspect, etc. So these are some of the key terms you need to be aware of. Very often these are 1-mark questions, or they relate to a higher mark question in the exam paper. Right, moving on then, types of settlement shape. We've got nucleated, dispersed, and linear, and the idea is that you should know what these 3 terms mean, and in the exam you may well be asked to look at an OS map and actually say whether or not a settlement is indeed nucleated, which is packed closely together. As I said here, usually around a focal point, so it could be a bridging point across a river, it could be a church, there could be a crossroads, anywhere which would actually attract people to start their settlement. Dispersed are usually individual houses which are spread out over a wider area. For example, in a farming community you're going to find lots of space between houses because it is a farming community. Or linear, where the dwellings are actually along a straight line. Very often due to a valley. Obviously if you've got steep sides you have to go along the valley floor, therefore it will be linear, and we use Wales as our case study here, the valleys of Wales, or it could be along a river or indeed a key road. And again you might be asked to look at an OS map and pick examples out of a nucleated, dispersed or linear types of settlement. Moving on then, function. Function is the reason why a town or city actually exists or indeed originally grew. And the function of a town can actually change over time. So an example, a local example, Shoreham, where we are, its original function was it was a port town. Canterbury, think about Canterbury Cathedral, it was a religious town. That's the reason why Canterbury grew up. London is an administrative or the seat of our government. And Brighton, originally this was a fishing function. The whole purpose of Brighton growing was because it's centred around fishing, and now it's obviously changed to a major resort. Okay. Rural depopulation. As you are aware, high-income countries have had a long history of people leaving the rural areas, and those people heading for the cities. And you need to be aware of the push and pull factors which lead people to leave the rural areas and go to these cities. Western Isles of Scotland was our case study, and looking at our case study, we found that 25,000 people have actually left the Western Isles to head for the mainland Scotland and other major cities within England and Wales. Some of the reasons why, well, if you're living on the Western Isles of Scotland, it is a harsh environment. The climate isn't particularly kind to you. It's very remote. There's a lack of opportunity, whether that's educational opportunity or work opportunity, and the wages are very, very low. Looking at the impacts of this thing, so what are the impacts? Some of these impacts you might need to be thinking about social, economic, environmental, but just some thoughts here. Well, as services close down, the costs increase, the elderly are left, which means there's a demographic change as well. And as I mentioned earlier, people are leaving for the mainland cities, whether it be Inverness or Edinburgh or Aberdeen. Moving on then, counter-urbanisation. In high-income countries, we're now seeing a return to the rural areas. So over the past 100 or so years, we've seen people leaving the rural areas to the cities, and now it's actually going back to people wanting to relocate themselves to the rural areas. And the Isle of Skye, which funny enough is in the Western Isles, was our example, because the Isle of Skye was one of the islands in the Western Isles which is bucking the trend. So we're seeing people now leave the cities of Edinburgh, Inverness, etc. and returning to the Isle of Skye. Some of the main reasons why people want to leave rural areas is because they're polluted, they could be seen as crime-ridden, too stressful, lacking in green open space, etc, etc. So people are now wanting to move back to those more rural locations. And the Isle of Skye itself, we've looked at the fact that this is the closest island to the mainland. It's now got a decent bridge which allows easy access. If you are to go by boat or ferry, again it's a short journey. And people now with greater technology are able to kind of work from home, so they're able to live in a kind of more rural, idyllic location while still being able to work as well. Right, we're going to have a little break now. What we're going to do is we're going to look at an exam paper. So if you bear with us for a moment, we're just going to set that up for you.